Xi Jinping became the 7th president of the People's Republic of China in 2013. Central to his policies was his pledge to rid the Communist Party and the Chinese government of corruption. 4 years later, China has purged thousands of corrupt officials from its ranks. But there may be more to this campaign than it first appears. Critics say the punishments meted out are not severe enough, and far too few officials are being caught. What's more, the legality of the investigations is highly controversial. Is Xi Jinping's crusade against corruption a genuine attempt to clean up China, or is he using it for other purposes? China's problem with corruption goes back decades. Economic reforms since 1978 saw the privatization of various state-controlled industries and increased investment from abroad. However, local economies are still heavily dependent on state planning and the approval of government officials. As a result, bribery is widespread, as corporations and criminals alike buy government support. Sometimes businesses have to pay local officials just to keep their doors open. The full extent of bribery is unknown, but at least tens of billions of dollars have exchanged hands over the years. A water supply official in a resort town near Beijing amassed nearly $200 million. General Shu Kai-ho was caught with 10 truckloads of priceless art and over 1 ton of cash hidden in his house. And the National Police Chief Zhou Yonggang had $16 billion in assets seized by the government. The rate of corruption varies depending on industry and geography, but it's typically between 20 and 43% of officials. President Xi Jinping promised to expose all corrupt officials at every level, both the tigers and the flies, as he called them. He gave this mission to the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. The CCDI investigates abuses of power in the Communist Party, which has 88 million members. Over 1 million party officials have been disciplined since Xi came into power, and China's score on Transparency International's corruption index has improved. However, the CCDI's methods are highly secretive and very controversial. Because it is an independent body, it can collect evidence and punish individuals without oversight by the judicial system. The CCDI also practices the top-secret process of shangui. Despite officially following the rule that suspects are innocent until proven guilty, when someone is taken into shangui, they are typically presumed guilty. Shangui is an order to report at a specific time and place. Human Rights Watch says it is another word for torture. Suspects are held in padded, windowless rooms. They can either sit or stand, but must do so for 12 hours straight. One man claims he was kept awake for 23 hours a day, forced to stand up with a book balanced on his head. After 8 days of this, he confessed to anything they wanted. This evidence is then used to prosecute suspects in the courts. Some judges have thrown out this evidence, but disturbingly, it seems that in some cases of torture, state prosecutors are directly involved. Sentences range from imprisonment to execution. At least 11 people have died during the shangui process. In addition, there is something odd about the people passed on for prosecution by the CCDI. Of the 7.4 million party members who work in government, 750,000 were disciplined for corruption in the first 3 years of the CCDI's campaign. Analysis by the Financial Times shows that of those 750,000 people, only 36,000 were prosecuted in the courts. The rest simply received a slap on the wrist. These statistics reveal a curious pattern, that exactly 10% of workers have been disciplined for corruption, and exactly 0.5% are actually tried and punished by the legal system. What's more, a heavily publicized documentary about the corrupt officials caught by the campaign aired in January 2017. And the CCDI has unusually broken decades of protocol to make numerous public statements on the progress of the campaign. The statistics and the publicity of the purge have led Chinese academics to wonder whether the whole campaign is a stunt to hide an ulterior motive. Hong Kong University's social science professor Ding Shui-Liang says the campaign is a half-hearted display. He says local governments are just punishing an arbitrary number of their employees to make it look like they're tackling corruption. Professor Ding estimates that around 80% of officials have engaged in some form of corruption. So that suspicious figure of only 1 in 10 being disciplined is a deliberate decimation. Law professor Fu Hualing agrees, arguing that President Xi has no real intention of fighting corruption at a grassroots level. If he did, the chaos it would cause could do huge harm to the government and, by extension, the economy. Already, studies suggest that Xi's fight against corruption has contributed to the Chinese economy slowing down, as politicians are reluctant to support new businesses or expand existing ones for fear of the CCDI. This may explain why the government raised the threshold for how large a bribe has to be to incur prosecution. Instead, critics claim Xi's main purpose is to consolidate his power. Most of the officials removed, imprisoned, or executed are rivals to Xi, or at least had a history of acting independently. Xi is considered the most powerful leader of China since the 1980s and is often described as the core of their political system. Not only is he president, but he is the general secretary of the Communist Party and the commander of the military, which he reportedly likes to control personally. He also appointed his close friend Wang Qishan as the head of the CCDI, who in turn appointed his close allies to run it. In effect, the independent investigators answer to Xi Jinping. Perhaps more worryingly, growing numbers of CCDI staff are being promoted to other branches of government. The people accused of enforcing President Xi's authority are now drafting Chinese policy too. So far, Xi's anti-corruption campaign has been limited to the 88 million members of the Chinese Communist Party. In January 2017, the government announced the creation of a new National Supervision Commission. This will absorb the CCDI and have the power to investigate all public sector workers from every party at every level. It will begin its work soon after President Xi is re-elected to his second and final term in late 2017. On the one hand, this expansion of the campaign may be necessary to tackle widespread corruption. On the other hand, it may be the beginning of an even more authoritarian Chinese regime.